if you are 1-to-1 with another driver, you don't give up. If you both die, you both die. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Daily Racing Show here at RacePlazaMedia. Today is Media Friday, and we'll be reviewing the Ferrari movie.
Just real quick before we get into the Ferrari movie and everything it's about, this is a really beautiful jacket, and only someone with a great sense of style would have bought this. So did you buy this?
Yeah, I did.
No, you did not. Lie.
No, I got it as a Christmas gift.
Yes.
But yeah, so I thought I'd wear a fitting outfit for today's review. I watched the movie in the movie theater by myself, and so today I can tell you all about it and you all about it, give you my 2 cents on it, a little bit of a review. There will be small spoilers, but I will point out before I say them so you can pause or move on to the next part of the video in case you want to go in without knowing too much.
Okay.
I know you don't mind spoilers as much.
Probably not. I don't. Okay, well, I guess depending on how this goes, I mean, the chances for me watching it is very slim.
Yes.
Not because I have anything against Ferrari or stuff like that, but in general, I'm not the type of person who, I don't know, watches a lot of movies or TV shows.
Also, this is a different type of racing movie. I feel like it was not the type of racing movie that I expected. We'll just jump right into it. It all kind of happens within a year of 1957.
Okay.
So Ferrari has already been around for about 10 years. Adam Driver, who plays Enzo Ferrari, is, of course, the head Ferrari guy, and then his wife, Laura Ferrari, played by Penelope Cruz. They're the ones that created Ferrari 10 years ago after World War II. They're going through some financial difficulties. They are selling Ferraris, but only like less than 100 a year. So Enzo Ferrari, to give you a little bit background on him, he was a race car driver originally. Then, of course, the war happened. He had to work in like a factory. And then after the war, he and his wife created Ferrari. He did still race a little bit at the beginning as well, but then when his son Dino was born, he stopped racing.
Okay. Premise about the movie is that 1 year.
It's that 1 year. So 1957, they are going through a financial hard time. They're trying to figure out, they either need to win this big race coming up, the Mille Miglia, the big famous Italian race. It's 1,000 kilometers from Brescia to Rome and back.
Oh, so it's almost like a rally.
Yeah, essentially. So they drive through...
But it's on a street.
Yes, they drive through the street. The normal roads are all shut down. That's the big race that's coming up, so they really have to win it. Their big competition, Maserati, is really doing well. Right now, they're going kind of head-to-head. So either they have to win the race and sell a lot more cars right after. Like the goal is to sell like 400 cars a year compared to less than 100 what they're doing now.
Okay.
Or if they don't do that, they will have to partner up with a different car brand and then lose some of the control over Ferrari, which Enzo, of course, doesn't want. So that's the one storyline that's happening. The other storyline that's happening is he and Laura are having some marriage difficulties. He has affairs and she knows about it, but her rule is he needs to be home before coffee in the morning is being served. And then their son had just died also a year prior. Dino had died.
Wow.
Yeah, so he had died, I think it was due to like some kidney issues, if I remember correctly.
He was a young kid?
He was a young kid, yeah, and he died, so that's also really hard on them. So right at the beginning of the movie, they actually go every single day to his grave.
Oh, wow.
Which is really sad.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Because I don't know anything about the movie itself or the family. I'm of course familiar with Ferrari, but I'm not familiar, so that's quite devastating.
Yeah, that was really, really sad, and you could really tell that it really took a toll on their marriage.
Losing a child,
yeah, no surprise. But then we also find out throughout the movie, which is not a secret, so that's why I don't feel like it's a spoiler, is that he, with the other woman that he's having an affair with, he also has a child.
Okay, does his wife know about it?
Not at the beginning of the movie, but she'll find out eventually.
Okay.
And then he today is now the vice chair of Ferrari.
Oh, okay.
So he ended up, and he's still alive and still
that's
part of it. And actually, which I thought was really cool, he talked about the Ferrari movie. And he said that even if you like it or if you don't like it, they captured Enzo Ferrari and things that were happening at that time. They captured it pretty well. It's not 100% accurate, of course, it's Hollywood, but it's pretty close, and it captures the essence of Enzo and the mood of that time really well.
Would you say that you, like, after watching the movie, first of all, do you think you get a good idea of who Enzo is? And do you think they depicted him like more favorably?
No.
Or do you think like they're like being really honest and he was not like not saying he was a bad person, but you can definitely tell that this wasn't like, Hollywood fight or whatever.
Oh,
where
no.
Like he's like, oh, he's Mr. Nice Guy and whatever, they kind of brush over, his flaws.
I hear what you're saying. Definitely not.
Okay.
I even read that there's not a lot of known about his private life because he was very private. But the few things that were known apparently are that he always wore sunglasses, which Adam Driver does in majority of the movie. He never takes elevators, or he never took elevators. He's not with us anymore. And then he never went on holiday or vacation.
Okay.
So, but yeah, no, I don't think the movie did him any favors, really. Like, the way they represented him. It's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, actually. I'll just get into now, because racing in the 1950s was insane. I mean, now, of course, we have all the protection. Like I feel like we were introduced to Ferrari through Michael Schumacher, Formula One. That's how I fell in love with Ferrari.
Yes, absolutely. Even though like we grew up in Germany as quote unquote Germans or half Germans, right? We watched Michael like killing it with the Ferraris, but yeah, we grew up like we were Ferrari supporters, even though there was a Mercedes team or a German team. I guess it helped that there was a German driver in a Ferrari, but like we grew up as like Ferraris, like Tifosis.
Yes.
Right?
Oh,
Tifosis,
1,000%. So, but like driving nowadays is so much safer. Like even just over the last 10 years, it has changed.
With the halo
like the halo,
everything.
Exactly. Helmet. I mean, if you see it in the movie, they're like half out of the car, which I mean, in the 1990s and 80s Formula One car, like, I mean, their shoulders were out too, which is just mind-boggling. But like then in the 1950s, they had goggles on, like a little bit of a helmet, no like protection whatsoever. They wore like gloves maybe, but they're like leather gloves. So I mean,
So it wasn't like fire protection suits or anything like that.
not at all. I mean, it was a high-risk sport, and that was a lot of drivers died in racing.
Yeah.
Particularly Ferrari lost a lot of drivers during that time. I think within like 10 years, they lost like 8 drivers because...
That's almost a driver a year. That's a lot.
That's a lot. And then that's one of the big moments in the film, I find too. This is also not a spoiler. They have races, of course, throughout the movie, and then they didn't win. And then now they have this one big race coming up. But before the big race, Enzo sits down with his drivers and he's like, you gotta, if you are 1-to-1 with another driver, like with an opposite driver, you don't give up. If you both die, you both die, but you're not gonna like let go. And that's what he tells his drivers. He tells them essentially to sacrifice their lives for Ferrari. So he can make money, or Ferrari
can continue to exist, right?
Exactly. But it's a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like, and then there's a scene where, I don't think this is a spoiler either, where the drivers write goodbye letters to their loved ones.
That is crazy.
And it's a really sad moment in the film. Like they sit there and they write their letters to their wives, their girlfriends, and they leave it in the hotel room because they know that after the race they might not survive.
Isn't it wild, like this dedication to a sport that like could potentially kill you, and like everyone, I mean, of course you accept the risk, right?
Yeah.
And even today, right, there's always a risk.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But it's crazy that we're at the time also we're like, yeah, I guess that's how it is, you know? That's, I don't know, it's definitely a different mentality.
Oh,
you know,
yes.
I mean, they are like hardcore. That's right. That's, I guess they have like, what is it called? They have like gas in their blood, gasoline in their blood, whatever. But it is like to be like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do this, but I might not be coming home.
Yeah.
That is insane.
That
you
is,
know?
yeah, because it was also, it's a high risk sport. It still is, of course. But yeah, when that moment happened in the movie, I was like, oof, this is quite heavy. That this is a thing that they had to do, essentially, because they didn't know if they would come back after that last race.
So in the movie, so the pictures that I've seen, it seems like Enzo is already older. Is that right? So he, in the movie, he's not himself racing.
No. So he stopped racing when his son was born.
Okay.
Because he knows the risk of the sport. He was like, I'm not going to do this.
Oh, okay.
So once his son was born, he stopped racing.
And then he, besides that one son and the one that is still alive, did he have any other children?
Not that it's mentioned in the movie.
Okay. Was there ever displayed the relationship between Laura Ferrari and the son? Like the other son?
No, so in the movie, she says he cannot have the name Ferrari until she is dead.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, and she didn't die until the late 70s.
Okay.
So she was around for a while longer, but then of course now we know that he ended up
he's like in charge, or one of the people in
but
charge.
That was one of the discussions in the film as well. Like as she found out about him, she was like, he cannot be a Ferrari until I'm no longer with you guys.
Okay.
Yes. Another thing that I want to point out, which we find out right at the beginning of the film, is so Mama Ferrari, so she also lives with them in Italy. So like Enzo's mom.
Okay.
And then we find out right at the beginning that Enzo's brother died as well during the war.
Oh, okay.
And then the mom says the wrong son died, which is so sad.
That is like,
That's like,
that's devastating.
Yes.
Oh my God. Like parents, some of these parents have zero chill.
Yeah.
Like that is, like, how do you tell your child that you should have been?
you should have been the one that died.
You know? Wow.
Yeah. So it's like quite a heavy movie.
Yeah, it seems like the family dynamic is also very interesting.
Yes.
And I understand maybe also why they chose to make a movie. I mean, it's also Ferrari, right? Like anyone knows, like almost everyone knows Ferrari,
Oh, of
right?
course,
You know?
yes.
But yeah, that's, wow. So the end of the movie is that big race?
Yes.
Okay, so spoiler alert right now. So
Okay,
if you
yes.
don't want to hear about the ending and how everything ends, I am just going to assume they win.
Well, okay, so yeah, spoiler alert. So the next little bit I'm going to talk about, if you want to watch the movie, don't watch this part now because it will ruin your experience very much.
Oh, okay.
So at the end of the movie, so we know that he wants to win this Mille Miglia race in Italy in 1957 in hopes to save Ferrari from financial ruin. So this race is very famous. It started off in 1927. The 1,000 miles, or 1,000 miles, I mean.
Sorry, real quick. Is the premise to when you win, you get a lot of money that helps the company? Or is it like you win and then the fame of that will help you sell?
The fame of it will help you sell your sports cars.
Okay.
Because they drive a bunch of different Ferraris in it, not just one. They have, I think, at least 4 different Ferraris that they drive in it.
They're competing?
Yes, that are competing in the
so
race.
It's not like they're switching them out?
No. They have to drive the 1,000. And then if it's a 2-seater Ferrari, they have a navigator with them. And if it's a single seat, then they don't.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's basically a very famous Italian race. It was not the only famous Italian race, but because it was so long and it was quite treacherous because it went through mountains and cities and it was on public roads, it was quite tricky. And then of course, because it's on public roads, a lot of people went to go see it and they were standing on the side of the road, which made it notoriously more difficult.
Of course, because you don't want to hit anyone.
Exactly, because the only British driver to ever win it, Sterling Moss, also said that like you would drive and you would not be able to see the apex of your turn because people were so crowded.
And they're probably all looking.
Exactly. So and you're driving at like really high speeds, of course. For the time, it was really high. I mean, it's still high speed.
Did you look up how fast they went?
I don't know how fast they went, but I know in 1927 or in one of the first races, it took them 21 hours to finish.
Okay.
And then one of the fastest races later on, it cut down to like 10 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
okay.
Sterling finished his in like 10 hours and some change. So it's there's quite a development in car speed in that time frame.
And this race doesn't exist today anymore?
Well, I'll get to that.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
sorry.
So was already known to be dangerous not only to the driver but also to spectators, because spectators have been killed in the race because if a car went off track or something like that. So it was before World War II, it was not allowed for 1 year because Mussolini, he said, we're not going to do this race any longer because of how dangerous it is.
Sorry, I have a terrible fun fact about Mussolini.
Sure, go ahead. Sure.
It's the same birthday as me. Which is not someone I want to be associated with. But that's like one of the only things I know. It's like, yeah, him and me have the same birthday.
Fun fact.
Fun fact.
Yeah, so it was already banned for a year. And then the war happened, of course, so they couldn't do it at World War II. And then it came back. And then, so 1957, the race happens. Ferrari is participating versus like Maserati and a bunch of other car makers. It's mostly Italian drivers.
Is it also mostly Italian car makers? Do you know?
I don't know for sure. I believe it's mostly, but I wouldn't say it's solely.
But like the main rival is essentially Maserati.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So it happens, they start off, usually the slowest car starts first. They start in like
intervals.
Intervals, yeah, the slowest start first and then fastest come. And so they drive the race and it all goes well. All the Ferraris are participating. They're all doing well. They pass a Maserati. Like there's like these like close, they're back and forth with the Maserati. Then the Maserati gets off track, stays safe, but so Ferrari passes them. So yes, Ferrari is on the road to win essentially. Then they have a pit stop to add like gas. And then they're already talking about, do we have enough air in the tire? Is everything good? And they're like, yeah, we're good. It's the last stretch. So they're in the car, they drive, and you already see the foreshadowing where there's like a little like speed thing, like a little bump on the road, essentially. You see spectators on the side of the road. The car hits the bump, takes air, and then kills 9 people watching. And the way they display it, it's so gruesome. Like I watched it in a movie theater during, like at the end of the year. It was not full, but you could hear the audience audibly gasp. And there was silence when it happened afterwards. It was like, I was sitting in the movie theater. I was like, why is this movie R-rated? Because it's a 2-hour movie. 1 hour goes by. Why is it R-rated? Yeah, there's like 2 intimate scenes. One of them completely unnecessary. But it's not like not a lot of nudity or anything like that. No cursing or anything that I remember. So I was like, why is this R-rated? And then when that happened, like you could see limps and like there's children that died. The driver of that Ferrari was torn into 3 pieces because I think he got caught in like a phone line or something like that
In
as
a
well.
phone line?
Something along those lines. So he was torn into 3 pieces. I mean, it was.
Okay, sorry. This is not what I expected.
That's
I thought you were gonna tell me like maybe they lose, maybe Maserati. I did not think that the movie would end with them as 9 people dying.
I mean, it's not the end of the movie, but it's like the climax of it. So Ferrari does end up winning with one of the vehicles.
Oh, okay.
And then like the driver and the navigator both die. 9 spectators pass away.
So essentially 11 people die.
Yes.
Wow.
And then I think 5 of them were children, or 4, or something like that. It was.
That is insane to me.
Yes.
Like I've seen like some of the rally racing and stuff like that, like in modern day. And when I see people standing on the side of the road, I'm just like, I just can't imagine this is freaking safe.
No.
You know, like there's just no way because there's like, you don't know if someone loses control because you hit a wrong bump.
And then especially for this one, it was a straight shot. It was just, there was something maybe with the tire, it hit that little bump on the road, and the tire kind of exploded, and the car took off into the spectators that were right there. I mean, also the build-up, how they did it. It was like this family. They were excited to watch the race. They run out to the road. They see the Ferrari, and everybody's like, woo, you know, celebrating. And then
they're just taken out.
And then the audience in the movie theater.
Oh my!
Because they show like limbs and dead people, and like it was a lot. I don't know if I was sitting there and I was wondering, did we need to see all that we saw? You know what I mean? Because it was already really heavy, and like especially knowing there were kids also that died. I mean, just the spectators in general, they had nothing to do with it. And they even talked about it in the movie afterwards, because one of the guys was like, oh yeah, like death is part of a sport. But then Enzo was like, no, like death of the drivers potentially, but not of outside people. They shouldn't be dying because of car racing. And then Ferrari was also charged with like manslaughter.
Wow.
Eventually they ended up getting acquitted because it wasn't their fault. I mean, they didn't.
No one wants this to happen.
Yeah. But yeah, and then that was the last time the Mille Miglia as it was happened. Now it's back since the 70s.
Okay.
But not it's in a similar format, I guess, to celebrate maybe the idea of what it was, because it still happens, but you drive only cars from that time era, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
But yeah.
Wow, that's very heavy. Okay, so just to like wrap it up, so that happens, then the Ferrari driver, one of the Ferrari driver wins, and then essentially just Ferrari ends up going on to become what it is now.
Yes, essentially.
Okay.
And I found a really interesting fact, and then that's that during Enzo's lifespan, he ended up becoming like 90 years of age, because he died in 1988.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he lived quite a long time. He ended up dying because of leukemia. But during his lifespan, Ferrari had won more than 4,000 races.
Sorry, when did he pass away?
1988.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, it would have been nice if you would have seen like Ferrari also like excel like.
Well, I mean, they won 4,000 races.
No, I know, but like the dominance they had during like the 2000s in like Formula One.
Of course,
you know?
Of course. But so two things. So the cool thing, yeah, they ended up winning 4,000 races during his lifetime. 13 world championships during his lifetime.
Across different
things, yes.
That's very impressive.
Yes. And then also, which is kind of bittersweet, I think it was 2 weeks after he had passed away, at the F1 Grand Prix, Ferrari took 1 and 2 ahead of McLaren, which was a huge thing. That was really, really nice.
Okay, yeah.
They ended up also naming a Ferrari after him, the Enzo, that came out afterwards. The F40 Ferrari is the last one that he was alive to witness. I thought that was really interesting. And one more thing that I'll read it. Enzo said, ask a child to draw a car, and certainly he will draw it red. And that's why, and that he's referring to the Ferrari influence, the Ferrari red.
Yeah.
Like any car, if you say a race car, for me, I immediately also think Ferrari. Or growing up, I thought Ferrari, a red car. Like I associate red with Ferrari.
Yeah, I will say it's like, I mean, I know that there are other color options, but I think it is very interesting when people get a Ferrari and then don't get a red one.
It's like missed opportunity.
I know. I mean, I've seen I think one of the, like, what is it called? The SUV Ferrari and stuff like that. I've seen a blue of it. And I know that there's yellows and stuff like that. But for me, like, yeah, it's like that quote, like, Ferrari equals red.
Yeah.
And red, yeah, it's kind of like, for me, not, interchangeable.
That's what I was thinking also. And also, like, for example, like, so Ferrari is automatically red. I was thinking, for me, Mercedes, silver arrow is immediately silver, or like this kind of beautiful gray that they have.
Race cars, but I will say, if it's a street car, it would be black for me. A
lot of time, yes, exactly. And then I was thinking BMW.
Blue.
It would be a blue probably, or like dark colors as well. So like there's different colors I feel like in my mind I associate to some, not every car brand.
Yes.
In that case, but Ferrari is very much
Ferrari and red is like
Yes.
You know?
Exactly.
Okay, so I do have some follow-up questions.
Okay, go for it.
So first things first, did his son from, the other relationship, did he ever race?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I didn't see any information in the research that I did that he ever raced, which I wouldn't blame him just based on the danger of the sport. I wonder also if maybe Enzo didn't want him to race. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, not that I know of.
Okay. Was Enzo Ferrari, was he a engineer? Was he actually involved in the making of the cars, or was he just like the founder and quote unquote the ideas man? Was he like hands-on engineering the cars too? Do you know?
I mean, based on the movie's representation of him, he was very much involved in the engineering as well.
Oh, okay.
You could see him sitting at the tables with blueprints of the vehicles and being like, oh, we need to change this for better airflow and stuff like that. So he was very much involved in everything.
Okay.
Yes.
So now that you've watched the movie, so without the research, before you did the research, okay, after watching the video or the movie, do you think you had a better sense and understanding what Ferrari is after watching it, or no?
A little bit, yes, because I feel like it kind of, Ferrari is a race car. I feel like that's what it was. That's where it came from. That's what it still is in a sense. So I feel like it just kind of reconfirmed that that's what Ferrari essentially is.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So if you're a Ferrari fan, watching that movie, you would say you would recommend it. So if you're just like Ferrari, yay, I love everything Ferrari, you would say, yes, go watch the movie, or you're like, no.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I would say go watch it. I would personally not rewatch it. I think one time is fine.
Because it's heavy?
Because it is heavy, yes. There's other racing movies I would maybe rewatch just because the racing is so exciting and it's a little bit lighter. But this one is quite heavy from the beginning all the way to the end. Like Enzo Ferrari only smiles one time in the opening of the movie, where they show, which is also very interesting, they have this black and white footage of him racing, but they kind of CGI Adam Driver's face onto it.
Okay, do you think that was weird or was fine?
It was a little weird just because it is Adam Driver's face in like...
So can you tell that there was like CGI and they did some like...
I feel like they did a good job.
Okay.
Like it fit nicely. It almost felt kind of comical because it was so light and you could see the racing as like this black and white footage and these like super exposed cars, and he wins the race at the end of it, and he has this little, like not even a big smile, like a smirk on his face, and that's the only time he really smiles in the film.
Okay. If you're, let's say Ferrari, you're like you're like indifferent about it, you're more like a racing or motorsports fan, would you say then, yes, go watch the movie? Or because, would you say, hey?
I would say yes, just because it is still interesting. There's some racing that is really interesting in it. And of course, the ending, as dramatic as it was, it's interesting to see. And it kind of, started up some questions for me. So that's why I did the research also. So I think I would recommend watching it, but just go in knowing that it's a heavy movie. So
and go in knowing that it's not about the movie itself. It's not necessarily about racing, but more about Ferrari and the company / family.
Yes, there's definitely racing happening, but there's also a lot of other heavy stuff happening. So yes, but I would recommend watching it once.
Okay, and then so the racing that does happen in it, does it look good? Do you like, how's the CGI and stuff like that? Do you think like, oh, it does look like a lot of green screen, or you're like, you know what, they did actually a really good job? What is your opinion?
I mean, I only watched it once, but based on my first impression, I thought it was pretty good.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember if nothing really stood out to me. Like the CGI at the beginning, like I said, with the opening,
it threw you off a little bit.
It threw me just a little bit, like, because I was also trying to pay attention, seeing like, oh, are they going to put his face on there? Is it going to be like super obvious? Like, I think it was a decent job. The racing itself, I thought was okay. It was not the best maybe racing that I've seen, but yeah, I mean, I feel like a racing fan would enjoy the film as long as they go in knowing that it's a heavy movie that's not just solely about racing.
Okay.
But I feel like just to get a sense of what racing was like in the 1950s, I think it's already would be enough for me to be like, okay, I want to watch it just to get that sense of also the danger and everything that goes with it. So yes.
Okay. Do you wish there was more racing in the film, or do you think that was like it was enough?
Yes, I 100% wish there was more racing.
Do you
in the
think
film.
like some of the talking could have been replaced with the racing? Or you would have been like, oh no, just make the movie a little bit longer?
Not longer, because it was already 2 hours, so I don't want it to be any longer. I don't think any more racing would have necessarily helped this movie just because it was reliant on the interpersonal things also. Like, I wish there would have been a Ferrari movie that was a little bit more about racing, but in this case, I don't think more racing would have helped the movie.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I understand why they opt to just maybe pick 1 year of the company, especially if it seemed like this was a very essential year for the company itself. And I think they, in like previous or different biopics, I don't know if you can consider this a biopic somewhat.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
They try to encapsulate someone's whole life, and you just you can't
Yes.
put that all in 2 hours. So I understand that. But yeah, I because the one thing that I heard about is that people were wish there was more racing in it, because I guess the thing about it is when you hear about Ferrari, you think like racing, and you go into that movie maybe expecting a lot of racing.
Yes.
I don't know.
I mean, yes, I hear that, especially going in. I was expecting more racing. I understand why there wasn't.
If it maybe would have been about something else.
Yeah, if it would have been more focused on actual Ferrari, like the company and the racing, but since it was focused so much on his personal life as well.
I guess I also understand. I mean, obviously, because that's the story that they, or like what they choose to focus on. So I understand, because I guess if you would have made it more racing focused, I think you would have then maybe had to pick maybe a driver to follow. Because then if you have multiple drivers, it might be harder to get people invested to, root for a character. So yeah, it's very interesting. I don't think I'll be watching it.
I didn't think so either.
Just because, like, I don't know, I think I want to just see racing, cut out all the other stuff. But it is very interesting to hear about it.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was not what I expected at all. I knew going in that it was going to be a more dramatic, heavy movie.
Yeah.
But like the stuff that happened was definitely a big surprise. And at first I was like, oh, it's only about the 1 year. So I was like, I want to know more about Ferrari. And like, but then I also get that if you focus on a year, you can put more detail into the year. So there's like pros and cons that go with the decision. Part of me is like, oh, I want another Ferrari movie to just know more. But maybe I just want to watch a documentary just to get the actual information, because I know there's going to be a lot of racing movies or race-related movies coming out, so we don't need 10 Ferrari movies necessarily, but I would totally be down to watch a documentary.
Okay, so if you could pick, this is my last question for today, I'd say. If you could pick one other car manufacturer to make a movie about, either in a similar vein or focusing on racing, whatever it is, who would you pick?
Oh, interesting question.
You didn't know that I was going to ask you
No,
that.
I didn't know.
So I'm putting you on the spot right here.
I mean, my first instinct would be to go with a German car. It would probably, my immediate thoughts are going either Porsche or Mercedes, just because they were also built in our hometown.
Yeah.
I would probably, in this moment, lean towards Porsche, just because I feel like I know a little bit more about Mercedes, because I've been to the Mercedes Museum.
We've been to a factory.
So I have a little bit more knowledge about it. But then, on the other hand, BMW might also be interesting. Just because I've heard things about that during World War II, there were some things happening.
Did they not build tanks?
Yeah.
For the,
That's what I was thinking. Like there was like, I mean, yeah, so that would be something that could potentially be interesting.
I don't know if they would want that type of movie.
Exactly, that's the thing.
Yeah.
So
I think, like you said, Mercedes would be interesting because like Daimler-Benz also famously made the very first,
Yes.
car. So I guess focusing on that would be interesting. But Porsche these days, I think it's hard to argue that they make one of the best sports cars out there, quality-wise. I don't know. I think if it would be maybe Porsche or even Mercedes, I think I would probably be more inclined to watch it. But for me, it's also with Ferrari, it's like the heaviness of it, which I'm like,
yeah, which I don't know exactly what they would talk about. I'm sure there's also drama in like Porsche history and Mercedes history.
Yeah.
Don't know much about it. So it would really depend on what else there is. I mean, they could also easily, I'm sure there's going to be eventually like a Lewis Hamilton documentary. I mean, we already had the Michael Schumacher one, which is
I didn't watch that. I don't think I can.
very heavy. But like, I mean, maybe there could be a Michael Schumacher movie coming out about his just his racing career, because his career itself was so interesting, how he got the start into F1. I mean, that could be a whole other video that we talk about. So there's so many racing topics that movies could be made about. So there's endless options. But for a car brand itself, I would probably go with Porsche.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm missing.
I would say for me, if I would say like, okay, don't pick a German one, maybe not a European one. I think maybe Toyota would be very interesting. Because Toyota also, it's been around for a long time, and they have I don't know, I think Toyota is also such a staple in cars and racing and
also,
stuff like that. And
which is so interesting. I feel like Ferrari, I immediately associate to racing.
Yeah.
But prior Toyota, I would have said like, oh, Toyota is like this everyday kind of car that like, I mean, like everybody can drive it. Like there's lots of people driving a Toyota, but I wouldn't initially associate it to racing.
Interesting.
Especially, I mean, now more, yes, because I'm more into it. But initially I would have said, oh yeah, that's like an everyman's kind of, or every person's car.
Well, I think that also comes with that Toyota. I don't know how much they've done actually with like F1, which is the most amount of racing that we've watched. Because you have Honda, of course, that does like engines and stuff like that, but Toyota not so much. So I see what you're saying. But yeah, I think there's so many.
That's what I'm saying. There's so many things to talk about, so many stories, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the Ferrari story, it was interesting. I would recommend watching it once, just so you can have seen it. Be prepared for a heavy movie. It's R-rated for a reason, so go in knowing that.
Okay.
But I'm glad I've watched it because it kind of intrigued me to do a little bit more research about different topics, which I'm happy that I did. I'm a proud Ferrari wearing person. I'm excited about F1 Ferrari and everything else that it involves. But yeah, I would say I'd recommend it. Go and watch it if you want. If you've already watched it and you have some thoughts, let us know in the comments below.
Also, feel free to share who you want someone to make a movie about. Like which car manufacturer or maybe car race driver you would want to see a movie about. Share that down below. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back with another movie review in 2 weeks. No spoilers yet? Or can we say what it's about?
I mean, we can say what it's about. So the next movie that we'll be reviewing...
Much lighter, I think.
It's, way... much
on the other
lighter.
spectrum.
It's going to be the Gran Turismo movie. It's on Netflix now. It came out earlier last year in the summer, but I figured since it's now on Netflix, it's a nice time to review it in case somebody wants to watch it now that it's a little bit more widely accessible. So yeah, in 2 weeks, we're going to chat about that. It's very different from the Ferrari movie, so I'm excited to talk to you about it and to you guys about it.
I haven't seen it. I'm not planning on watching it, so I can ask questions about it. That one, I feel like I already know I would be more inclined to watch it because it is much lighter. But, feel free to watch it. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be back talking about the GT movie. Yeah, so as I said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.